This data visualization highlights a massive disconnect in public understanding. It shows that 47% of the public believes they have legal protection through a common law marriage, but right next to it, we see the actual legal standing they hold: 0. There is simply no such thing as a common law spouse in England and Wales. You can live together for 3 decades, share a home, and raise children, and in the eyes of the law, you remain legal strangers. Gaining those sweeping legal protections requires crossing an invisible line. Once you cross that line, you enter into one of the only 2 adult relationships the state actually recognizes: marriages and civil partnerships. The legal landscape modernized significantly with the Civil Partnership Act 2004, extending these vital state protections to same-sex and later opposite-sex couples. Personal commitment is a start, but validity depends entirely on satisfying strict statutory rules of formation. The first inescapable pillar of a valid partnership is capacity. This determines exactly who is legally allowed to partner in the first place. The initial test is age. The rules here recently shifted with the implementation of the Marriage and Civil Partnership Minimum Age Act 2022. The law strictly sets the absolute minimum age at 18 in England and Wales. This removes previous parental consent exceptions, specifically to protect vulnerable young people from child exploitation and forced marriage. The second test looks at the prohibited degrees of relationship. Simply put, the 2 parties cannot be too closely related to one another. First is consanguinity, meaning you are too closely linked by genetics, like a parent and child or siblings. Then there is affinity. This prevents unions based on close, pre-existing legal ties, primarily protecting stepchildren from exploitation by a stepparent. The final capacity test is status. You cannot marry or enter a civil partnership if you are already in one. English law does not permit bigamy or polygamy. If you fail any of these 3 capacity tests, age, relationship, or status, any ceremony you go through is legally meaningless. Once a couple establishes they have the capacity to partner, they encounter the second pillar: formality. This is a rigid procedural checklist. Step 1 is the notice. By law, a couple must make a formal public declaration of their intention to partner. They are required to lodge this notice at a district registry office, which acts as a civil equivalent to church bans. They then have to wait a mandatory 28 full days before any ceremony can happen. Step 2 is the ceremony itself. A wedding or civil partnership cannot just happen anywhere at any time on a whim. Whether you opt for a religious service or an authorized setting like this venue, the event has to occur within highly regulated legal parameters, overseen by an authorized celebrant or registrar. If a couple deviates from this rigid sequence of formal events, they fail to activate the state's legal protection. What happens when a couple gets these steps wrong? The legal consequences depend heavily on exactly which rule was broken. If a major capacity rule is broken, for example, if one person is already secretly married, the new partnership is declared void. In a void scenario, the law acknowledges that a formal attempt was made. Because of that attempt, the court allows the couple access to financial remedies and property orders through nullity proceedings. There is a far more dangerous legal state, known as a non-marriage or a non-qualifying ceremony. This occurs when the failure of formality is so severe, like lacking an authorized venue or an official notice, that the state refuses to recognize a ceremony ever took place at all. The brutal consequence of a non-marriage is total legal erasure. The couple is stripped of all financial remedies in the family courts, landing them right back at square one as unprotected cohabitants. The strict requirements set out in the Marriage Acts and the Civil Partnership Act are not arbitrary hurdles. These statutes represent the specific legal criteria that activate the absolute protection of the state. Romance and commitment are what initiate a relationship. In the eyes of the law, only strict compliance validates it. Adhering to those statutory rules of formation is the absolute method to guarantee an adult relationship is recognized, protected, and honored when it matters most.